it's UK independent demonstrator Halsey here from slimandstylish.com. Thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you've all had a lovely weekend. I'm just going onto my channel so that I can watch along with me so I can see all your lovely comments. Let me know if you're here. Do stop, say hello. Today's project is this watercolour background slimline card. I love slimline cards at the moment. I think they're really nice. Lots of people have been doing them, and I've done one or two, but I really haven't got into doing them as much as everyone else. But whenever I see one, I'm like, oh, I love those. So I've actually made this one, and it's quite a good thing to do with watercolouring, and I'll explain why. Hi, Colleen. Hope you're okay. So we're also using the Pretty Perennials Photopolymer stamp set. This has got to be one of my most used stamp sets from my lives, I reckon. I can't stop playing with it. It's beautiful. I love it. So if you're someone who watches my lives and you haven't got this set, I'm really sorry, because I know it features in a lot of them, but I love it. So the reason why I said that this is actually, it's good to do a slimline card if you're doing watercolouring is dead simple, really. Our watercolour paper, our fluid 100 paper, if I take a sheet of this out, comes to 7 inches by 5 inches. So if you did a normal card for this, you would actually use a good chunk of the watercolour paper and you just have scraps left. Whereas if you do a slimline card, you can simply cut this in half, so you can have it 7 inches by 2.5 inches, and you can actually make 2 cards from the one piece of watercolour paper. So it's much more efficient, I think, to actually do slimline cards with a watercolour background than a full card. Plus the fact, who doesn't love a slimline card? So there we go. Hiya, Karen. I've had an amazing day. Thank you very much. It's been brilliant. Hiya, Claire. Hi, Debbie. Oh, I got my second jab this week, Colleen. So I've had my second and I'm all done now. We still have to wear our masks, but I'm okay with that in a way. I think while I've got my mask on, I remember to social distance, and I'm a bit worried that if the mask comes off, I'll think it's back to normal and I won't social distance anymore. So I think the mask kind of helps in my head me remember what I'm doing. But yeah, there we go. Right, let's get started. So I've actually used our brand new polished pink paper, and I'm going to use it again. So what you need is you need your polished pink paper. This is cut at 5.5 inches by 7.25 inches. Okay, and then I've scored it at 2.75 inches. So 7.25 by 5.5, scored at 2.75. And that makes your base card. There you go. Dead simple, dead easy. I don't know why, I like, because I don't do them that often, they're just so unusual. I love playing with slimline cards. As I said earlier, the watercolour paper, I've simply chopped it in half. So it's staying at 7 inches, but it's 2.5 inches wide. And then it will just sit as a panel on my card like that, with a flash of pink at the back. Hi, Aniki, I'm fine, thank you. How are you? Hope you're all right. The colours that I'm using for this, if I lie this flat so I can talk you through the colours, I've used Mango Melody, I've used Polish Pink, and I've used Soft Succulent on the flower, on the leaves. So the stamps that I've actually used in this one is this one here, which I've done with Soft Succulent, this one here, which I've done with Polish Pink, and this little burst here that I've done with Mango Melody. Okay, I'm using my old watercolour pens purely because I had them on my desk and they've been used. And if you're like me, new stuff always looks shiny and new until you use it. So I wanted to keep my new stuff on. But let me show you the differences between the two sets of watercolour pens before we start. They're not a great difference, other than the fact, well, I'll show you. So these were our previous watercolour pens. You've got a thinner watercolour pen, a slightly fatter one, and then a definite tabby one, like that. They've got their blue canisters and they're squishy, and those were the old ones. The new ones are beautiful, and this is why I don't want to use them, because they look gorgeous. So they're a thinner barrel, still very easy to push. You have a literal pencil one there, so thin, which is going to be great for adding detail. There's your medium one. And the one that I am really excited about is this one here, which is like a paintbrush one. Really nice and fat. So I've squished that down as I've put it back in. I knew if I opened them, I would ruin them. And that's why I've avoided using them. And I'm using my old ones today. Okay, I've also got my spritzer. The other thing I've done is I've only put one sheet of grid paper on my desk, because if you mess up with this and you get the water on your grid paper and you've got your pad and it soaks all the way through, it's going to warp all of it. So just take one off the top. Okay, right, let's get started. I'll take my lids off. Oh, Nikki, I am so sorry. 6 months waiting list for your neurosurgery. Oh, I am sorry. So there we go. There's my colours. So what you want to do first is you want to open them like that so we can stamp down. Okay, you just want to make a simple background for your card. So I'm going to play with the leaf and the flower first. I'm going to put the spray in at the end. Okay, and you don't have to be neat with this. There's no right way. It's just going to be fun colours at the end. So just a nice mixture between the two will do. Okay, you do want to push harder than what you push on normal paper, because our watercolour paper, hopefully you can see if I hold it up, has got slight texture on it. It's not smooth like our normal card. So you do need to really push hard to make sure that you're getting into the grooves. You can also use our shimmer Whisper White for this. That works. In which case you don't need to press as hard. But like I said, I like using our watercolour paper. I think it's fantastic, and you can put as much water on as you like. It works brilliantly. So I'm just switching between the two stamps here. Okay, I might pop another one at the top there, and that's about done, I think. Okay, then I'm going to play with that spray burst one, this one here that I was telling you about, and I'm going to use Mango Melody for that one. And put a few of those on. There we go. So now what you want to do is pop the Mango Melody away. You don't need that going forward, but you do need both the polished pink and the soft succulent. Now if you have our old inks, let me see if I've got one of my old inks handy. Okay, Cherry Cobbler. This is the old style ink pad. Okay, so it's different to the new style. The new style Looks like that. Okay, if you've got the old style, you can simply push the lid of your ink pad into the pad, and it will then give you a little pool of colour, just a tiny pool, but it will give you a pool of colour on this side to use. If you have one of our new ink pads, that doesn't work. They're a lot sturdier. They don't work like that. So instead, you just want to open it up and you want to have the refills handy. Well, actually, I'll tell you 2 ways you can do this. If you've got the refills, which I have there here, that's great. And I'm going to show you how to do that. If you haven't, you want to have a spare block. Okay. So if you've got the refills, just pop a little bit of the refill in. On both. If you haven't got the refills, then use the ink block and smush it into your ink pad, and it will pick the ink up on the block and you'll be able to use that. I said I've got the refills, so I haven't done that. When you've got the ink, you want to use your spritzer just to make it nice and runny like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab 2 little blocks actually and put them underneath the lid of the ink pad so that it sits straight. Otherwise it's going to run, and I want to have it all in one pool. And then you want your watercolour markers. So choose your thinner ones. You don't really want the fat one for this one. And I've already used that one before for the pink and that one for the green, so I'm already ready to go. And what you want to do with a little pot of water, so I've got a shot glass. With the pandemic, it's the only way I've been using shot glasses for the last year. Pick up some of the colour and you want to go over the image. It doesn't matter how wet you make it. It's just taking some of the ink and putting it onto the image to give it that watercolour effect. Don't worry about lines either. That's fine. Go straight over those. It all adds to the effect. Okay, because this is really watery watercolour, you do want to have your heat tool ready. You can have a towel ready. Whenever I do my watercolours, I always have a roll of kitchen towel to the side of me because I always know I'm going to get into a mess. Hi Shirley, hope you're okay. Hope you're having a lovely weekend. Thank you for joining. Just keep dragging that colour over. Even though your brush will get wet, make sure you keep dipping it back in the ink and it will make it darker for you. If that's too dark and you think to yourself, do you know what, I wish mine looked lighter, after you've started it or you've tested it, you can add a bit more water in to dilute it. If it started out light and you want it to go darker, add a bit more re-inker in. Now, when you've got this, I always wipe mine out then on my Stampin chamois, and then I'll always wash this out once I've actually finished. But I do wipe it on the chamois as I go through. Okay, green one. Soft succulent one, as perhaps I should say. I'm just going to go through that. So what's everybody been up to this weekend? I've had a fantastic day today. After 447 days, I think it is, I've actually been able to see and hug my nan under the new guidance. So I went to the care home this morning, had a visit with her. It was lovely. Really nice. It's just been far, far too long, but it was the best morning ever. And I've been able to book in to go next week on Saturday. So very excited by that. While I'm talking about next week, actually, I do have an apology to make. I won't be able to do our live next week. I'm actually working all day on Sunday. And I don't think I'll get back here on time. If I do, I will give you a heads up and just do an impromptu, non-planned live. But I honestly think I'm not going to get back. I've got an event to get to in Bristol, which is probably about 2.5 hours drive from me. And then I've got a couple of events to hit on the way back. So it's not looking very probable. I'm just going over this for a second time, just to give it a bit more darkness. It's dried quite light. And so I'm just going to go over it and bring some, you can see it's quite light on this side, it's quite dark on this side. So I'm now dipping my nib into the dark side and bringing it across. That sounded very Star Wars. Okay. So that's how it's looking. Would help if I actually brought it up to the camera. And because our watercolour paper is quite sort of, it's like a sponge, you know, that's already started drying. Hello Tina, hope you're okay. From Holland. Gosh. Spreading the countries today. Hope you're all right. Oh, it was wonderful, Anika. It was great. It's just the first, like the big thing of starting to get back to normal, I think, is being that we've been able to see her. It was the one thing on my list when they've been opening up places you can go to eat and everything. I was like, that's good. But I now need to know when I can go and see my nan, and it happened today. Yay. So I've got the final watercolour pen, the one I haven't actually used yet. And with this one, what I'm going to do is go over the whole card with water, and I'm going to really splash this with water. So hopefully you can see that my background isn't crisp and clean. If you want it crisp and clean, stay as we've done it. You can use that. But if you want to get this effect that looks like a little rainbow across, you're going to need to do this next step. So what I've done for that is I'm not going to dip it into any ink. I'm going to use it, that's a clear one. I'm going to dab it into loads of water, push in as I go to make sure it really covers the whole card. I'm going to get this as wet as possible, and I'm going to drag all the way across, and that's going to drag all the colours from all the different sections out. And I'm squishing at the same time. As you can see, the barrel has emptied quite a lot because I've been squishing loads. It is going wet, wet, wet. And this is what I mean about only having one piece of grid paper down rather than your whole lot. Otherwise, this will really run through all your grid paper and it will mess it up. Okay, straight lines. And you can see now that it's all gone across quite nicely there. While it's wet, you want to grab your heat tool. And you want to start blasting this, okay? You can move this ink now wherever you want. The heat tool will allow you. And just dry it up. So hopefully you can see it's moving the ink around in the direction that I want to move it, so I get my runs. Okay, so it's spread it. If you're not happy with any of the runs, just grab your pen. I've not got much water left in it, but if you could just grab your pen, go back over the top of them. You can bring in more colour. Just go back over the top and it will spread it around again. And then you can just dry it again. This is something that you can keep going over because it will always just keep spreading the ink. If you find that your watercolour paper starts to warp like mine does, just turn it over and heat the back. And it will straighten itself back up again. You can't do that on normal card because you will start to burn it if you keep playing with it, but watercolour card is extremely resistant to the heat. So just taking that piece of paper off, it's gone straight through, so it's a good job I didn't have it as a pad. As that's the end of my watercolour, I'll bring my proper pad back in, ready for us to finish the card off. Oh, that's not my original card, that's my base. There's the original card. Oh, you've got rain over there in Holland. We've got rain here as well. I'm bowling tonight, so I actually play lawn bowls an awful lot through the summer. And if it rains, you still go ahead. So I've been looking at the weather today thinking, I hope my game will be all right. I don't like getting my waterproofs out. I like playing in the sun. So I'm just going to pop my magnets onto here. I'm going to be using my Stamparatus for the next bit. As I said, watercolour paper has that texture on it. And because I'm stamping this directly onto it, I want that to be crystal clear. So I'm going to stamp it a couple of times. So you're better using a stamp positioning tool like your Stamparatus to make sure it goes on really clear. So I'm just going to grab my stamp, pop that on the card. Okay. Now you could use some of our big stamp sets. Let me show you our new big stamp sets. We've got the Biggest Wish here, and we've also got Create with Friends. So you could use these stamp sets if you haven't got Pretty Perennials for this. And there's my Stays On. So I'm using Stays On to get a really deep dark black, and when you push it in to your sentiment, just do a little turn of your wrist so you kind of wobble the ink into it. Okay, and I'm going to stamp this down about 4 or 5 times just to make sure it's definitely on. Colleen, yes, you can let it air dry. You can. However, if you want to manage where the ink is going, so you want to sort of get these straight runs and you want to whiz the ink across, you're going to stand better chance of that if you've got a heat gun. Or if you don't have a heat gun, a hairdryer will help. But you can definitely leave it to air dry. The one thing I'd say, if you leave it to air dry, when it finally dries, the paper will dry a bit warped. Stick it under a book for a bit for it to get back flat. Otherwise, it's going to bend the base of your card. I sometimes find that StazOn is a bit sticky onto the paper. So I do use my bone folder just to help the magnets hold it down. In fact, I could move my magnets a bit nearer. But yes, you can use your bone folder to help hold it down. Like I said, I'm going to do this 3 or 4 times because I want that happy to be really, really distinctive. I'm still going until I'm happy with it. Sorry, you're going to have to sit and watch me ink it up a few times. What you can do is you could do it in Versamark and do it in our black embossing powder. That will give it a nice shine. I didn't want to do that because I quite like it being a matte finish, but up to you. If anyone's crafting along today, Karen's going to pop an album in the Slim and Stylish's Crafty Hangout group on Facebook. So if you do make this card, please pop along to there. Pop in your picture so I can see what you've done. And if anyone's ever watching and they're worried about casing my projects, because I know some demonstrators can get funny about people casing and not giving credit. I get really flattered when I see that people have cased my projects. It is no problem. You don't have to ask. Please just go ahead. You can make them. The only thing is I just really like to see them afterwards because I like to see other people's interpretations of them. So if you have done it, please do let me see, but I'm not precious. You go ahead and you can use them. So there we go. There's my happy, nice and crisp and clear. So hopefully you can see that. Pop that to one side. Only took about 6 or 7 stamps. And I'm going to grab a piece of scrap basic white. I'm going to take the mail stamp and I'm going to use Memento for that. You can use StazOn if you still want your StazOn out, but I just didn't particularly want it to stain this stamp when there was no need for it. So I'm just going to stamp that in the corner like that. What you can do, by the way, if you don't like the fact that StazOn stains your stamps, we do have a StazOn cleaner in the catalogue, and that works pretty well. And you've got like a little pad and you can wipe it over and it helps clean your stamps because Memento doesn't stain. You can wipe that off with your chamois and it's still clear, but StazOn, it does leave a stain on your stamp, so you can use the StazOn cleaner if you want. Right, some snips to cut that down. I'm just cutting around it. Nothing too fancy with that. Okay, and I'm going to pop that underneath. So I'm just going to grab some of the outsides of my dimensionals. These are really handy when you're cutting thin sentiments. I'm just going to pop that down on about there. Finally, you want some twine. I'm using the basic white twine out of the Naturals pack, but you could also use our black one. That would go because you've got the black sentiments. So whatever you've got, feel free to use, but I'm using the white. And what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to turn over my card, go roughly about 1.5 inches in, and I'm going to run a strip of seal all the way down, and I am going to go round this and wrap it 4 times. I wanted it to stand out that I've actually put a strip of twine across, and I didn't feel that one stood out very well, so keep running next to each other. And keep sticking it back into the adhesive at the back. It will help hold it in the right place so it doesn't all bunch together and it stays straight like that. And then just snip that off. Before I go any further, I'm just going to add adhesive to the rest of the back of this card and get it stuck onto my base now. I'm sticking it down flat. You can stick it with dimensionals, but I'm sticking it completely flat and popping it onto the base card. There we go. Haven't stuck that very straight. Look at that. I've stuck it down now. Oh well, we didn't see that. Everyone close your eyes, you didn't see that bit. A little bow with a twine. So these actually, Karen's on, I think Audrey's on as well. For my team members, I actually post out at the end of the month if they've had a record month for either recruiting or for sales. I send out vouchers at the end of the month if they've done better than before, which enables them to have £5 spend, I think it is in the catalogue. No, it's not. It's if you collect 6, you get a £20 spend. That's it. Can't remember what my own vouchers say. And I thought I would send these cards with the vouchers this month. So heads up, Karen. I think you might be getting one of these through the post, and Audrey. Plot spoil. So I'm just going to stick that down with a little glue dot. And a few rhinestones in the centre of the flowers. If you've ever thought of joining, by the way, we have a nice little team, don't we, Karen? Lovely ladies. There's a few of us. We have a few team challenges, teams get-togethers. And there's no better time than this month because there's actually a good promotion going on this month, so it's great. You can get a load of extra products when you join as opposed to usual. So just drop me a message to ask me about it. But there you go. There are my cards. Happy mail. I think it's bright and happy. I quite like it. I'm very annoyed that I didn't put that straight, but I have actually stuck it down now, so I'm a bit stuck. But there we go. Like I said, if you have made along, please do pop along to Slim and Stylish's Crafty Hangout. Send a request to join that group on Facebook and let me see what you've made. That would be great. And as I said, I might have to miss next week because of work. In fact, the more I'm thinking of it, the more I think I'm not going to get back here on time. But I will give you all a heads up later on in the week, so please do check out my Facebook, my Instagram, and I will let you know whether I will be live, or whether I've made it back or not. But very sorry to ditch you on a Sunday. Very sorry, but there we go. Hope you've enjoyed this Sunday. Have a lovely week, everybody. I'm really glad you liked the projects. Thanks, everybody, for joining, and see you all soon. Bye.